Medical laboratory professionals devote their lives to providing better health care for the American public. National Medical Laboratory Week, April 10th to the 16th, salutes those who serve you through laboratory science. This is KMSP TV, Minneapolis, St. Paul, your News 9 station. And now, just before Channel 9 concludes the programming day, we bring you News 9 Final, the latest news compiled by our KMSP News Department. We've heard about it, we've waited for it, but now we'll never see it. It's the $50 rebate promised by Jimmy Carter during his presidential campaign. Carter has chopped the rebate from his economic stimulus package, and he said this.
President Carter said a fresh look at the economic indicators convinced him and his advisors the $50 tax rebate simply was not needed.
The biggest overall pleasant surprise to us has been in retail sales. We did have a substantial surge in retail sales in February compared to January. We discounted that improvement because we thought it was just a recovery from the very severe winter. But in March, in an unanticipated way, retail sales show continued consumer confidence. I think that was a single major factor.
Here in Minnesota, the legislative pay bill, rejected by just 2 votes just last night, was revised and approved by the Minnesota House of Representatives late this afternoon. The vote was 70 to 61. It came after an hour and a half of debate. And Chris Welch reports that the bill is now on its way to becoming law.
Last night's defeat of the pay bill was considered a setback for DFL leadership in the House. However, after today's reversal vote, House Speaker Martin Sabo said it took no magic, but just a little bit of talk to get the 4 votes changed.
You know, I'm convinced that the bill we're considering was one of the most important bills we have in this session of the legislature if one believes in state government. I happen to believe very strongly in state government, be very proud of it. We want to strengthen it, and I think that's the impact of this bill, and we tried to relay that message, and I think some people thought about their votes and agreed to vote yes.
Sabo says he feels higher salaries will attract better people to government. However, the Republicans, who almost unanimously oppose the measure, apparently don't agree. There are several minor differences between House and Senate versions of the bill, no problems anticipated in getting them ironed out. And Governor Perpich, who has expressed no opposition to the pay increase, is expected to sign the measure. Chris Welch, News 9, the state capitol.
Under that pay bill, legislators would receive a pay increase to $16,500. They presently get $8,400. District court judges would have their pay increased from $32,000 to $40,000, and the governor would receive $58,000 compared to his present $40,000. The saccharin ban has been sweetened a bit. The Food and Drug Administration has decided to allow its sale to diabetics as an over-the-counter drug.
The FDA stopped short of a total ban. Saccharin will be available by itself in tablet, powder, or liquid form to be sold as a non-prescription drug, like aspirin. The government's intention, however, is to have it removed from all processed foods like diet soda. In so doing, the FDA is looking to cut out 90% of saccharin consumption.
With 1,000 Americans a day now dying from cancer, with another 1,600 new cases being detected daily, and with the near certainty that the majority of these cancers are environmentally caused, I think we as a nation simply cannot ignore the kind of case that we now have against saccharin.
The saccharin that is sold will be required to carry a label. Warning, use of saccharin may increase your risk of cancer. Commissioner Kennedy said FDA has been deluged with letters objecting to the rat testing that has shown saccharin to be dangerous. But such testing has always proven reliable, he said, and FDA feels that even moderate use of saccharin, like 1 diet soft drink a day, could lead to additional cases of bladder cancer.
Diet foods containing saccharin could be off the market as early as this summer. Minnesota's longest-running environmental marathon will soon become history. That optimistic comment came from Governor Perpich as the reserve mining controversies came to a close.
Just how soon those tailings will go on land instead of in the lake is still uncertain. An attorney for Reserve said today that the company might be able to start dumping at milepost 7 in 1980 if they can get the necessary state permits within 60 days. But Governor Perpich said he did not know when or whether the state's 6 top elected officials would approve milepost 7.
There's a time and a place for everything. As far as reserve mining is concerned, I think this is the time and the place to end the litigation, to begin implementing the court's decision, to make on-land disposal a reality, and to free up the resources which have been tied up in the reserve case to work on other pressing environmental problems.
Perpich also said that his main concern in legislation that would increase taconite taxes is to see that land scarred by mining in northern Minnesota is reclaimed. John McNichol, News 9 at the state capitol.
A 23-year-old Minneapolis man has entered a guilty plea before the Hennepin County District Court on charges of kidnapping and first-degree criminal assault. Clark Bailey is charged in connection with last December's abduction and sexual assault of a 13-year-old Minneapolis girl. Charges of aggravated assault and criminal sodomy have been dismissed, with sentencing and the other charges set for May the 12th. However, News 9's Chris Welsh says the case may still have some new developments.
It was Saturday evening, December 18th. Loanne Stacy Erickson and a young male friend were invited to the Bailey home at 3023 Russell Avenue North. The two found themselves locked in the basement, being threatened with a gun. The boy escaped out a window and police were notified, but by the time they got there, the girl and Bailey were gone. The search was now on. Police arrested Bailey when he returned home the following morning. They impounded his automobile, but there was no trace of the girl. What was thought to be blood was discovered on steps leading to Minnehaha Falls. Police converged on that area, but found nothing. The search went on for 3 more days. It centered much of the time along the Mississippi. Police using canine teams hoping to sniff out the girl's presence. Helicopters combed the riverbanks from the air. Nothing turned up. It was Thursday, now the 23rd, and Bailey led authorities to the girl's frozen body in a peat bog near Fertile, Iowa. She had been shot 5 times in the head and chest. It's been determined the girl was killed after being brought into Iowa. A spokesman for the Worth County Attorney's Office says extradition proceedings will be initiated before Clark Bailey's sentencing date of May 12th. He will be charged with murder and likely brought to Iowa for trial before serving his prison term on Minnesota charges. Chris Welsh, News 9, Minneapolis.
The second man charged in the Erickson case is scheduled to appear in Hennepin District Court on May the 10th. 25-year-old George Mims is charged with 1 count of sexual misconduct. The St. Paul City Council heard arguments on a proposed ordinance prohibiting heterosexual massaging. Representatives of area massage parlors met with the opposition, and arguments centered on a number of legal and social issues.
The ordinance, as proposed by Councilman Vic Tedesco, would eliminate any kind of contact between sexes at St. Paul massage parlors. It's estimated that 160 people give massages at St. Paul establishments, with all but 10 of those being women. Opponents of the ordinance say a restriction such as this will drive parlors out of business. Other arguments included sexual discrimination and violation of civil rights.
My experience has been in representing these establishments that the desire and the reason for men to go to them is to have a woman give them a massage and not a man.
Supporters of the ordinance say approval would help eliminate some of the sexual abuses they maintain go on. Advocates told the council that at least 90% of all parlor patrons are interested in so-called extras.
I don't think there's any area of the city that is not tainted with this cancerous growth. And I suspect that it's an insult to the intelligence of this council and to the people of the city of St. Paul to indicate that the great, merely because of a newly discovered therapeutic value of saunas, that all of a sudden they've proliferated throughout the city without the question of the sex violations that occur.
Those favoring more control on massage parlors argue neighborhoods near the parlor suffer, that a cycle develops. A parlor comes in, the neighborhood goes down, and then more parlors come in.
So that means
the City Council is scheduled to vote on the sauna parlor ordinance a week from today. And if that ordinance passes, attorneys for the massage parlor say they'll appeal that action in court. Dan Harris, News 9, St. Paul.
In the other half of the Twin Cities, a group called Neighborhood Fight Back petitioned the City Planning Commission to restrict pornographic businesses. The problem began when bookstore owners Ferris and Edward Alexander opened a new store in a local residential area. The neighborhood hopes that the Planning Commission will give them more control over pornographic business locations. The Neighborhood Fight Back Committee stresses that they are not advocating censorship. Rather, they hope their actions will aid future neighborhoods in controlling the locations of adult businesses in their area. The Twin City metropolitan weather forecast, variable cloudiness with a chance of showers and thunderstorms through Saturday. The low tonight and Friday night, the mid to the upper 40s. The high Friday and Saturday in the mid-60s. Winds southerly 10 to 15 miles an hour tonight, southerly 10 to 20 miles an hour on Friday. The probability of measurable precipitation 30% tonight, 50% Friday, and 50% Friday night. Right now in the Twin Cities, 58 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 Celsius, the wind northeast 3, humidity 78%, the barometer rising, it's at 30.02, and the sky is cloudy. And that's the news till now. This has been News 9 Final, compiled by our KMSP News Department. The Community Affairs Department of KMSP presents each day a sermonette by leaders of the religious faiths of our community. This morning's visitor to our Chapel of the Air is Reverend Tinklenberg.
There's a story about a man who suddenly found himself on the brink of his 30th birthday, and the prospect terrified him. He thought to himself, "My goodness, I'm over the hill." And when he saw all those candles on his birthday cake, it took his breath away. For nights following his birthday, he lay awake thinking, 30 plus 10 is 40. 30 times 2 is 60. 30 times 3 is 90. Finally, about 3 a.m. one morning, he got out of bed and said, "I'm going to change my life. I'm going to be a new and purposeful person. No more foolishness, no more parties, no more just hanging loose. All of that is going to change." It was time to be serious and mature. On Monday of that week, he burned his blue jeans and bought a gray suit. On Tuesday, he got a job in the bank. And on Wednesday, he enrolled in a Dale Carnegie course. On Thursday, he took out a life insurance policy, and on Friday, he sent in his subscriptions to Reader's Digest and the Wall Street Journal and Time magazine. On Saturday, he began working out at Mr. Executive Health Spa. Then came Sunday. He wasn't excited about the idea of going to church, but he knew that this was the final step in claiming that new life that he wanted. And when he got to church, he knew that he was right. For this was indeed ultimate seriousness. It was dark and quiet, and there was no foolishness. And then the preacher got up, and as he began to speak, our hero's chin dropped and his eyes stared in disbelief. For the text for the morning was, "Verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as a little child, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven." To me, that text speaks about a total quality of life. For when we choose to confine ourselves totally to the dimension of seriousness and intellectual aloofness and scientific objectivity, our lives become flat, moving on only one level. But when we can temper that part of our lives by including a dimension of childlike fascination and awe and wonder and amusement, then our lives can become whole and rich and full. Without embarrassment, we can know the miracles that happen all around us. And Jesus is right.